Empezamos. Muy buenas tardes para todos, en directo o en diferido, y bienvenidos a esta clase abierta, donde vamos a hablar, donde Ra va a hablar de cómo educar a los niños, a los bebés, a los adolescentes, sea lo que sea que tengamos en casa. O cerca, tíos, abuelos, padrinos, madrinas, lo que sea, amigas, amigos de bebés que nacen, poder transmitir esta información tan importante para que esas criaturas se vean beneficiadas a ser tratadas según su diseño. Entonces, vamos a ir directamente ahora a la grabación, porque después tengo un par de cositas que decir con esto, pero ahora, sin más, voy a sacar mi cámara también y vamos a la grabación. A ver, ahí vamos, ¿eh?
All right. Well, hello and welcome to all of you that are downloading. Hope all of you that are downloading are going to be able to find a way that suits your schedule so you can get into these classes. But welcome to all of you. I was, if I could fantasize, it would be nice to have a few million parents listening to this. It is one of the subjects in my life that has always moved me. Involved with younger people in education almost from the time that I was a teenager. I have very ancient anger, how much children are abused. And I don't mean about the obvious of abuse. How they're abused by ignorance. The way they are seen, the way they are grasped, the way they are trained, the way they are homogenized, the way they're conditioned as beings. You see, one of the great tragedies is that when you have the privilege of being able to see the mechanics, and to be able to see so clearly what the extraordinary potential is in any single human being, any single. And that to understand and grasp deeply that from the moment that being is going to come into the world, that everything that is supposedly there for that child to nourish it, protect it, guide it, are homogenized beings who are not self. And because of that, they are always going to have emptiness in them and lack of fulfillment. They will have all the negatives of whatever type they happen to be. They will have relationships that are flawed. They will live according to the customs of their homogenized society, and they will raise their children accordingly. They will carry on the habits of the parents. You know, we know deeply with children that have to deal with physical abuse, that the chances are that they are going to abuse later in their life those that they love, those that are dependent on them. I mean, the responsibility is not in the hands of the children. You know, the responsibility is in the education of the parents. Our whole process depends on them. I mean, when I was given the knowledge, I was given the way in which awareness can be attained naturally, and the fulfillment of life purpose can be attained naturally, and health and well-being can be attained naturally by entering into this world and being greeted by those that will treat you correctly and educate you accordingly. It's not the way I could start. I had to start with all those beings that were there around me who are not sent. That long process of creating what had to become some kind of, self-help thing. I mean, most of my career has been spent in just trying to decondition people, not spent with being able to provide for the deep well-being of children. Have to go through the adults first, have to get to the parents first. I mean, I've lived long enough and human design has done well in this life that I've been able to see it. That is, see parents who are aware, who are raising their children correctly. And it is something that is really remarkable, but it is a tiny, 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 tiny fraction. Tiny fraction of, there are thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of creatures that incarnate all the time. Here's one. This is a chart for today at the moment that I started the class. It's really an amazing thing to be able to have the mechanics, to be able to see them. Because the moment that you have the mechanics, you have a way of understanding what is possible for your child and how to care for them. I mean, literally, how to care for these beings. There's so many things to see. And each and every one of them provide a parent with a blueprint that allows them not to interfere, but to support the process of somebody coming in on this planet. This child is a simple projector. And I mean simple, I mean that in the sense that there's only one definition. This is a self-projected authority. This is a very powerful identity. And yet as a projector, we know right away that it is a non-energy type and that it's deeply vulnerable. This child is deeply vulnerable to conditioning. This child will naturally be conditioned. Most of the forces that will come in on this plane that are similar in this configuration will be deeply, deeply conditioned. Projectors are here to be invited. They're here to be invited into this life. This is their whole point. And there are so many things that we look at because it's not just simply what we see on the surface, and the surface tells us so much. It tells us that this child has an open and vulnerable immune system, that they're going to be very clingy, and it's not about getting angry at them because they are desperate to hold on or afraid when you leave the room, because that's what an open spleen is going to bring. And it just says if you're going to have this child and you want this child to be safe and secure and content, put it in the papoose and hook it around your body and carry it around. Give it that sense of security that it's going to demand. It's also open emotionally, and there's all these possibilities that can activate its emotional system. It means it's deeply sensitive to the emotional frequency. If the child has a mother that's emotional, or the mother forms connections, a connection here or a connection here, or any of these three connections here that are going to define that solar plex system, then this child is going to constantly be feeling the amplification of the emotions around him. We know very well that this mother, like all mothers, is going to go through something that is deeply draining, both physically and psychologically, in dealing with their infant in its first 9 months. The disruption in sleep patterns and eating patterns and all kinds of things that go on, and the very changes that take place in the chemistry itself. And it's one of the things to grasp that, this mother is going to go up and down on her emotional wave, or the father is going to go up and down in his emotional wave, and this child is going to take it all with an amplifier. And when the mother's exasperated with the clinging baby, you know, when she gets really upset, this baby is going to get really upset. There are things in the mechanics that don't just simply reveal that your baby's a projector and you invite it. But you know, it is to be able to grasp that there is so much that is visible in the design that can be turned into tools and techniques that are used by parents in order to allow them, you know, to let things be what they are. It's so easy to let things be what they are when you see that that is correct mechanically. It's just the way it is. It's not like you can stop this child from being sensitive to the emotional world, nor can you stop this child and its open heart center, you know, wanting to control everything and thinking that it will never be worthy until it can control things. There's all kinds of things that are here to watch. But there is a way to treat this child correctly. If we're talking about this as an infant, and it is a newborn, then one of the most important things that we look at is the combinations that are there on the design side. Because they tell us two very important things about this baby. The most important of all, the design sun and the design earth, they represent.
Perdón, la persona que tiene el micrófono abierto, por favor, lo puede cerrar porque estamos en clase. Justamente, yo cada tanto voy a interrumpir para decir alguna cosita. En este momento hay muchas personas que no lo saben, pero esta tarta es una tarta avanzada. Se muestra el color, el tono y la base. Que es esta. No viene al caso ahora explicar eso. Simplemente que del lado del diseño hay este triángulo y este hexágono que nos muestran y representan nuestro sistema cerebral. Y el sistema cerebral está directamente ligado, atado, comunicado con nuestra forma de alimentarnos. ¿Por qué? Porque nosotros tenemos un vehículo, que es este cuerpito gentil. Si cuando nosotros nos alimentamos, no nos alimentamos correctamente, o sea, hay una lista de cosas, depende de los numeritos esos, estamos poniéndole a este vehículo, comparémoslo con un auto, un combustible que no le corresponde. Si ese combustible no le corresponde, el cerebro no está bien nutrido, con lo cual vamos a estar confundidos, nos va a costar pensar, vamos a tomar decisiones incorrectas, vamos a tener problemas a largo plazo. Pasa todo eso. Eso se estudia en los talleres de variable, donde aprendemos cómo tenemos que nutrirnos de acuerdo a nuestro diseño. Ahora te va a explicar un poquito más. Sigamos.
Our brain system. And what you're looking at here is you're looking at the color and the tone that are underneath the line of the specific gate. In other words, substructure information. What it basically tells us is that this color gives us what's called determination. And determination is the proper digestive process. One of the great plagues of the newborn is colic. And the vast majority of what is called colic by allopathic doctors It's simply a byproduct of these babies not digesting correctly. We have 6 basic digestive systems that are actually evolutionary in their nature. In other words, the first digestive system, which is called the caveman and cavewoman, is about eating one thing at a time. It's very primitive and is related to about 1 billion or so people on the planet. What we're looking at here in this 4th color is that we're looking at either a need for calmness or nervousness when one is eating. This happens to be nervous. Now you see the digestive system, what is so essential is that when you digest food correctly, according to your determination, what basically happens is that no matter what you take in, because this isn't about food, it's not diet, it's not about whether it's good food, bad food, echo food, junk food, doesn't make a difference. The fact is that if you digest properly, either according to conditions or circumstances that are part of your design, then you're going to take precisely the nutrition that you need, and you're going to give that nutrition to those areas of your brain system that support your difference. This is what dietary regimen is about. And dietary regimen wasn't something that was intended to be given to 40 and 50 and 60-year-olds, which is the case today. Nothing to do about the way everything has to start. We have to start with adults that are conditioned. But it's intended for children coming into the world. It's intended to be their dietary regimen for life. It is what's going to give them the advantage of increased neural activity and neural expansion in their first 7 years. It's going to provide them with a healthy system that's going to be guided by a very strong and very healthy sensory system. Now, this child is nervous. And what nervous means is that this child is at its worst when everything is still and quiet and calm when it's eating. It needs a lot of activity going on around it. Itself, it needs to be active. Obviously, it's going to be different as the infant matures into a child. But for example, this is a child that is never intended to sit still. It is not going to be easy to accept having to sit still in school. It's not easy to sit still during a meal. And as a matter of fact, for this child, it's unhealthy. These are the kinds of people, for every one of these dietary regimens, there's 2 variations. This is one of these people that, as they mature, eating while they're walking or dancing or, jumping up and down in the middle of the meal to do something else. And all these kinds of things are going to be the most natural and healthy behavior for them. Now, you can see right away in my description of that there's a homogenized parenting code that would have real trouble with that. They would lash the kid to the table. They would tell everybody to be quiet so that they can have a peaceful meal. And, goes on and on and on. In the meantime, this is the worst possible thing for this child in the way it digests food. And what happens is that when you're not correct in terms of your dietary regimen, then you don't break down the nutrition in the way in which you're going to be supported in your difference and in your differentiation. In other words, support what is genetically intended for you to manifest. Instead, it's going to go all over the place. And basically what this does is that this leads to homogenization. So one of the first things that is so important with children coming into the world is being able to provide their parents with an understanding of what's the necessary dietary regimen for that child. Now, the second area is environment. Now, environment isn't something that is important for a child in terms of their life process until their Saturn return, until they reach their 30s. However, it is significant in many areas because it is about an environment that's healthy for them. This child happens to have the first environment, which is the cave environment. And the moment I see that in a child, there is a very simple thing that you can do that can relieve them of psychological stress. That is, cave people are the most secure in a room with one door, and that they can control the door. So many bedrooms are going to have at least 2, sometimes 3 doors. If your child has its own bedroom and there's more than one door, then do something to camouflage them. Put a screen in front of them or whatever the case may be. And your child will have, very, very healthy sleep and feel very secure in their sleep. See, there's many things that can be seen that are enormous value to any parent in being able to understand what to expect and what to be able to do. The most important in so many ways, regardless of the age of the child, is what's called variable. Variable is an extraordinary thing. These arrows, they're derived from these triangles, and in the triangle is what we call tone. It's the tone that really carries the cognitive architecture. In other words, we're designed to be cognitive creatures, this self-reflective consciousness, the way that we live this out. And what tone contributes is that tone contributes different ways in which our cognition is possible, and different ways according to these four themes that we have here. And these four themes become the steps in transformation for us. And when you're looking at these arrows are determined by the tones themselves. Some arrows pointing right, some arrows pointing left. Now, this leftness and rightness is something that's very, very significant. And it particularly begins here. When we're looking on the personality side where the sun, earth is, this is where the mind is. Over here is the brain. Here is the perspective. Here is the environment. And here is the perspective. So we have four different cognitive components that are here in variable. Now, if you look at the mind here, you can see that the mind is left. There's two possibilities for humanity. So fundamentally, if you look at the nearly 7 billion of us, half of us approximately are left-minded and the other half are right-minded. But there's a tremendous dilemma in that. That is, we live in a world that's dominated by left organization and homogenization. The seven-centered being that preceded us, the seven-centered being was purely strategic, in the same way that Neanderthal that preceded it was 5-centered. Now we happen to be 9-centered. The 7-centered being, our ancestors, they were purely strategic. Everything was rooted in leftness. And the strategic is the way in which you organize your survival at a conscious level. In other words, is what happened to us when we, moved the splenic possibility of awareness into a mental process. The 7-centered being mastered mind and having the illusion that it controls everything. This is leftness. And what comes with leftness is a very deep focus. So when you're looking at this baby, you can see that this baby has a very focused mind. It's very focused. But think about the baby that has this arrow pointing right. Half of all the babies will have that arrow pointing right. It means they're right-minded. They don't fit into the world around them. The strategic baby will learn how to focus from its strategic parents because that's the way they were raised and that's the way they were trained. But the right is not focus. It isn't. The way it looks at things is it looks at things as a periphery. It is receptive in its nature. Receptive. Which means that left children and right children learn differently. Very differently. Left children are able to go along with the strategic way that education is given, whether at home or in school. But the right child doesn't respond to that. They immediately feel uncomfortable and are forced to try to copy the strategic processes that they see and learn around them. They are never secure at the mental level, and they don't get the opportunity to show the depth of what it is to be receptive. A receptive mind takes in everything. If you have two babies in the crib, and one of them's left-minded and one of them's right-minded, the left baby is going to be focused on something. That goo-god that's hanging down over them, and is going to be lost in that. This is the binocular vision the way in which, mind finds its object, focuses on it, tries to control everything within that frame and remember it. But the right baby sees everything. I mean, the right baby is taking it all in. It's taking in the whole environment, the whole atmosphere. It's taking in everything, everything. Its developmental process mentally is intended to be very, very different. Very different. See, the right mind is to be trusted. Everything that goes in is there. You don't have to keep on focusing your child on learning something. If it's already taken it in, you simply have to wait for it to be displayed, and it will be displayed. If you go to the other side and you look at leftness and rightness, this is the brain system. It comes to something else, one of those things that is always a concern of mothers in their relationship to their child, because it has to do with feeding itself. Not only is this about dietary regimen and what's correct for this child in terms of getting the proper nutrition, but it also is about quantity, food quantity. This child has a right brain. And literally what that means is that that right brain does not need to be overfed. When you have a child with the right brain, you have to trust how much it wants of anything. You have to trust that. It's not about you dictating, you haven't had enough, have more, or you've had too little, It's not about you need more and all that kind of stuff. You have to see what it is. The right brain needs less quantity than the left brain. And so understanding what is the uniqueness of your child and beginning to trust in its form principle. Its form principle is born to be correct. It really is. You can trust that this child will not overeat or undereat. It will take in exactly what it needs. And because it's right, it doesn't mean that it's going to take it in when you want it to take it in. When you want to focus it on eating, it will let you know. You see, the moment that we can accept the correctness of our children, there is this assumption that our job is to mold them, to shape them, to turn them into something. What a horrible expression. It's about being present in their lives with love. It isn't about anything else. It isn't. It's all there. The responsibility of the parent is to be aware. I mean, this is what awareness is all about. Awareness is when you can let go of needing to consciously interfere, when you can just see. If you understand the basic mechanics of your child, you can watch it. It's amazing. I mean, I know. It's an incredible thing. And what it does for you as a parent is remarkable. First of all, it brings relief. Relief. There is only beauty there. It's what I see in every chart that I look at is the potential of the beauty that's there. And, most of my work has been dealing with people who've been so deeply conditioned that that beauty is something that has just been lost. If a child is raised as themselves, the way we look at development changes. All of development up until now has been conditioning. You raise your children, you condition them. And then you offer them over to institutions that condition them. It's all conditioning. And of course, what comes with conditioning is this assumption that you're doing the right thing, that this is the way your parents did it, or this is the way you're going to do it, or, they're going to be this and they're going to be that. Wow. It's already there. Let them unfold the way they were intended to. They will. And you see, when you see the mechanisms and you see it demonstrated in them, it allows you to trust more and more in the obvious. This is the way it works. This is what parents have not been taught. And, it's not enough for a parent to be given the blueprint of their child if they're going to be incorrect in their own process. This is the greatest dilemma. I mean, it's easy to do all of this because there's nothing to do. It's just about being aware. It's about taking fear out of your system. All parents, most parents love their children, can be deeply concerned and afraid for them and for themselves. I mean, it's part of what it is for us to have, awareness centers that are fear centers. Fear is part of our existence. And you see, once you can understand something and you can watch it and see it for yourself, and, the child that is raised without conditioning is an extraordinary spirit. They are content within themselves because it's not constantly being pointed out to them that they need to be conditioned to be something else. That they're not going to stand in front of the mirror and wish they would be this thing or that thing or the other. They won't. The first interference of parents is to establish a goal for their child, whether it's conscious or not. This is the mystery. It's the magic and the beauty of what an incarnating force is. That they're here to express something unique, something genuinely differentiating. And you can see what the homogenized world does with that. The first thing we do with that is slap all that homogenizing on them, starting with food. So easy. All right, let me take you through a couple of steps in that.
Bueno, ahora vamos a hacer la pausa porque ya más o menos estamos en la mitad. Así después arranca con los tipos y va explicando los tipos. Así que pongo la pausa. Y va. Bueno, yo tenía anotadas unas cosas para decir. La primera es, no nos damos cuenta el gran condicionamiento que tardamos todos y lo homogeneizados que estamos, porque es una lucha diaria. Todos los días recibimos condicionamientos de todos lados. El mundo quiere que seamos soldaditos, ¿no? Todos marchando al mismo ritmo, porque es más fácil dominar a la gente que marcha al mismo ritmo. Mismo al principio de todo, o sea, comprendemos lo que es la singularidad. Ya está explicando acá de cómo se tome. Como un chico a veces tiene la necesidad de moverse y de comer estando en movimiento. ¿Hasta dónde se puede aceptar eso? ¿Hasta dónde en un colegio van a aceptar que esa criatura necesita a veces levantarse del banco y caminar un poco? No puede estar horas sentada en un banco. O sea, somos todos diferentes. Eso es lo que hay que comprender. Y que si a mí se me respeta que yo sí puedo estar sentada escribiendo 2 horas, a otra persona puede no resultarle tan fácil. Em, entonces, eso puede llegar a ser un problema. Es un problema en muchos lugares, de hecho. Em, pero bueno, el tema es que cada persona, o sea, los que estamos hoy acá, por lo menos, lo comprendamos. Em, Después él habló de la homogeneización y de que uno asimila, fuimos criados así, entonces nosotros criamos a nuestros hijos así. Todos tenemos un gran condicionamiento, pero por ejemplo, yo fui hija única, entonces mis padres me respetaron mucho em, lo que yo quería. Me respetaron mucho la alimentación y un montón de cosas. Y yo sin saber hice lo mismo con mis hijos. Me acuerdo que hace muchos años, esa es una de las cosas que hice bien, ¿eh? No hice todo bien, porque aparte el diseño humano llegó a mi vida cuando mis hijos eran adolescentes, así que... Pero, yendo para atrás, me di cuenta que había muchas cosas que había hecho bien. Por ejemplo, una vez, estando en la oficina, alguien me dijo, pero ¿vos le comprás a cada uno de tus hijos un cereal distinto? Y yo le dije, sí, en mi casa hay 3 tipos de cereales diferentes, porque no a todos les gusta el mismo, o a uno le gusta más el Fruit Loops, el Cheerios, Y me dijo, ¿vos estás loca? Le digo, ¿sabes qué? El cereal está todo en el mismo lugar. A mí me da lo mismo elegir 3 tazas iguales de una de este y una de este. No es que tengo que caminar 2 cuadras. No era tan difícil. Pero bueno, eso también ayudó un montón. eh, a que ellos estuvieran contentos y a que, bueno, los 2 mayores son como yo, gusto. Pero uno es de toda cognición izquierda y Bárbara es toda cognición derecha. Entonces, Kevin siempre al día de hoy, cognición izquierda tiene un cerebro activo y un cuerpo activo, se tome todo. ¿Por qué? Porque gasta mucha energía. Habló de los 2 tipos de cerebro. En cambio, la cognición derecha, como yo, mi hija, las dos somos cuádruple derechas, somos pasivas, somos tranquilas. No gasto la misma energía que mi hija. Por ende, tomo menos. Me puedo saltar comidas. Esto ha sido siempre. Con un montón de gente diciéndome, ay, no te saltes comida, que es tan malo. Yo soy muy rebelde y hereje, así que lo seguía haciendo, pero bueno, es un poco eso. Todo en diseño humano tiene una gran lógica. Es lógico que si vos gastas mucha energía, necesites combustible. Si no gastas tanta, necesitas menos. ¿Mm? Esas son cosas muy fáciles. Yo sé que lo que él explicó es importante que se lleven el núcleo de eso. No importa si cuántos colores hay, tonos del cerebro, la mente, no importa. Eso después se ve en talleres. Yo doy talleres de variable, me pueden escribir. Si juntamos personas, ahora puedo dar uno. Eh, y la otra es comenzar también con el vivir tu diseño. Pero ahora va a ser más como fácil cuando habla de los tipos. Yo sé que la variable es muy amplia y bueno, a veces cuesta un poco, pero hay que entender que la nutrición correcta es básica, sobre todo para las criaturas, porque esto empieza desde el momento en que nacemos. ¿Mm? Entonces, si acaban de tener un bebé o conocen a alguien que ha tenido un bebé, háblenle de esto. Es importante para ellos, los padres y el bebé. ¿Mm? Bueno, vamos ahora a seguir entonces con el tipo. Y empieza con el manifestador. Hasta dice que tiene una doble estrategia. Es el único tipo que tiene una doble estrategia. De adulto tiene que informar, pero cuando es pequeño, al manifestador, al niño, la niña manifestadora, hay que enseñarle a pedir permiso. No de grande, de chico. El tema del no ser es la ira o el enojo. Y las mecánicas son que tienen motor conectado a la garganta y que no tiene el satral definido. Acá está el motor, la raíz, conectada vía el vaso a la garganta. Eso es un manifestador. Bueno, seguimos entonces. Ey, esperen.
Just look at children crying at the time. And before I go on, for all of you that are going to be listening to this, more important than anything else is to check out the right or left-mindedness of your child. Because if you have a right-minded child, the sooner that you let them know and understand the way their mind works, the sooner you're going to save them from a lot of grief in this life. It is something that's very important, let alone raising a right-minded infant, truly understanding that your children, that your teenagers, that, this is something that they're suffering from. You don't need to suffer from. All right. And just a brief look here. We take a look at each of the types and think about them. The manifestor is peculiar in that the manifestor has a unique strategy for childhood. And childhood is measured as long as you're living under the roof of your parents. So as long as you're part of the same pentagon, basically, that first family pentagon. And so it makes it very different. That isn't so for any of the other types. It is obviously a deeply important component here for the well-being of manifestors. That comes with their strategy when it's about asking permission. When the adult manifestor informs, and informing is very different from asking permission, because informing is not asking permission. It's just, my description of it is you're driving down the road and somebody's crossing the road and you honk the horn. That's informing. It isn't stopping the car, just honking the horn. But when you're looking at asking permission is placing oneself in a subservient role, and it is holding back one's power. It is not an easy strategy, and as such, it's never intended to be an adult one. In other words, it's really something that is the responsibility of parents to teach their manifestor children. I mean, in the moment that you have a manifestor child, there's already a problem. It's in the aura of the manifestor child. It has got a repelling aura, closed and repelling aura. So there you are, a generator mother, which is very common, 67% of mothers. You've got a generator mother, and she has a manifestor baby. And there's the generator mother with her enveloping aura, and she has a baby that you can't really connect to, and she can love it. But it is not like she feels that there's this strong connection. Now, in the not self, that physicality can lead to all kinds of really problematic psychologies in the relationship between the mother and that child. They may never get along. The mother might always be disappointed in them. There's all kinds of things. The other thing is that because it's a manifestor child, it is by impulse going to do things on its own. And of course, this is, where manifestors first meet punishment. is that, their parents are always controlling them. So not only can't you envelop, in that sense, your manifestor child, but you end up being frustrated with the fact that, you have to control them. And, if you don't understand these mechanisms, I mean, come on, all of you recognize what all that means. It leads to a problem child, a problem relationship, and all the things that go with it. And of course, manifestors are here, as a chemistry, their chemistry releases anger. This can end up being a very, very angry being. There's all the potential for problems that are going to arise. And all of that out of ignorance. Because look, if you understand that, it's nobody's fault. There's no blame. It's not like you point a finger at somebody because they happen to be this or that. You see it for what it is. You recognize that your child is a manifestor. And in recognizing that it's a manifestor, it is not going to reject love. It isn't. It's not going to be cuddly, but it isn't going to reject love. And it isn't going to deny love. It's just different in the way it works, because it is their nature that it's going to be different. And they don't need to be punished. They don't. They need to understand that because they have power, they have to ask permission. This is one of the guiding rules for the manifestor, is being aware of impact as an adult. The impact is the lessons you learn from asking permission. You get to find out many things when you ask permission. Instead of seeing it as subservience, see it as a way of finding out many things. It's all about understanding your child. The manifestor child needs to feel its power. And at the same time needs to use its power in a way that will allow it in its adulthood to be able to get along with people. That's what asking permission trains. Being able to see that you can't always use your power, that sometimes you need to control your power. And it goes on, the way in which that operates. But again, it's something really just to see at the simplest level. Having a manifestor child, you cannot really, tell them what to do. You have to develop a totally different way of communicating with them. Every child, every type, every configuration brings another technique that's possible to be able to create the best possible communication, and also to be able to maintain the well-being of whatever, the rest of the elements there are in the design of this manifestor. But it goes back to the parents being aware. I mean, I know many, many mothers now who have manifestor children, and they've really come to appreciate what they are, because they're no longer caught up in all of the things that are there. As a matter of fact, I think it's more difficult to be a manifestor mother with a generator child than it is the other way around. I think that for the not-self manifestor mother, being closed off in that sense from her children is very difficult, and always seems like it's a psychological problem. So it leads to a lot of overcompensation. I think, I think manifestor mothers suffer a great deal from not understanding who they are and the way in which they operate, because it would make it so easy for them. I mean, I had to learn that as a manifestor father. I mean, I have a deep connection to my children, and yet at the same time, I am a manifestor. I mean, there's not a lot of access to me physically, these kinds of things. Yet at the same time, my children truly understand what I am. They understand the limitations of what I am because I've talked about it. They get it, and they know that it's not personal because they know that it doesn't influence or impact, the nature of the love that's there between us as a family. It has nothing to do with that. But it could have been, in ignorance. It always would have led to problems. I, as a parent, would have been seen in a very specific way and not necessarily in a positive way. You know, and all of this is just a matter of ignorance. It isn't a matter of anything else. Generators. Every once in a while, I still get people who think their manifesting generator is somehow something unique and on its own. You know, some people think, have even suggested that it is a type, which I think would annoy the boys, because that certainly is not the case. And as a manifester, that's something that is always so obvious to me, is that regardless of whether a person is a generator or a manifesting generator, I get precisely the same impact. And I have a totally open sacral, so that really is my wisdom. Anyway, generators. A generator child. This is the most powerful being. You know, this is the creature that is here to maintain life. Generators are a force of life on this planet. It's what they're all about. They're a generating life force. It's what it is to be a generator. And the generator child is not just simply very powerful, but its aura is very powerful. You know, it is this open and enveloping aura. It really needs to take in the other. But the most important thing for a generator, from the earliest moments of their consciousness, is to help them grasp themselves. I mean, nothing more important, you know, this know thyself, which was, you know, literally created for generators. The sooner a generator understands their nature, the sooner they're going to make a contribution in this life, and it doesn't matter how long. You know, this is really what it's all about, is to raise our generators well. We raise our generators well, we change the aura of the world. This is, it's an obvious. No, you know, there are things that are very basic about the generator, but one of them is about, first of all, the nature of response, the responsibility of the parent not to tell these children what to do. And, you know, I know parents who, you know, shake their heads when they do that. And actually what I mean by that, because it needs to be qualified. I only have generator children, I have 3 of them. I never started off telling them what to do. In other words, I would go through a ritual of asking. And every once in a while, that asking would not be sufficient, and I would have momentary manifestor anger. But that's not really what the point is. The point is that the moment that you're always starting with asking, you're respecting the being. And not only are you respecting the being, but you are giving them a positive reinforcement they need as a generator, because they need that. They need to be asked. The generator is refined through their recognition of correct stimuli. After all, they're here to respond, and they're here to respond to just about anything. So it is the quality of what they respond to that is so important for them. You know, when you're bringing a generator into the world, you're bringing a creature into the world that is not going to be complete until it knows itself. This is what a generator is about. You know, before the class, we were talking about, you know, impacting teenagers with the knowledge. And, you know, the generator that knows itself, that knows the mechanics, is deeply powerful in impacting its peer group. I mean, everything about the generator, what it means for them. You know, I'm always astonished. When generator baby comes into the world, this is, you know, one of those creatures that was born to have a life of ease. You know, the generator is here to just purr through their life, like some well-oiled machine. I mean, this is what they're all about. This is their nature. And everything about them, I mean, everything about them, is about whether they're ready to be surrendered creature. It's very difficult to teach somebody who's conditioned and get them to a place to surrender. But these babies are born surrendered. And I don't mean that in a mystical way at all. You know, they're born perfect. I mean, they're born perfect. I mean, if you're a non-sacral being, there's always work to do. Sacral beings are born perfect. They just screw it up. And it's not them, it's, the whole homogenized thing. Because everything for them is about never being conditioned to initiate. You don't condition your sacral child to initiate. You get them to respond. And when you get them to respond, they're incredible. The other thing is that you need to honor their sounds. I mean, no matter what their configuration is, and there are variations on this, the vast majority of these sacral children are going to have very, very powerful primal sounds. They're their core to communication. And those are the sounds that in response are going to really be able to get you to the cleanest and most honest relationship that you can have with a child. I mean, it's what I say about, generated to generated relationships. No possibility for a more honest relationship than generated to generated. It's about asking each other to respond, and the response is a very clean thing. Now, again, there are other factors, whether the child's emotional and so forth and so on. But just talking about it from its basic theme, what it means to have that generated child. See, their whole development is based on what you offer them to respond to. I mean, it's extraordinary what you can do for them. And as long as they never get the conditioning that says they've got to manifest things, they've got to make things happen, all of that, they're going to be very healthy, very powerful, very, very content, forces satisfied. This is what it is to be a generator. Most important thing physically for generating children is this, homogenized infatuation with bedtimes. And generator children should never have fixed sleeping time. I mean, I know that for some families that would seem to be a burden because, you work all day and you want to have peace in the evening and blah, 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 and stuff. Generator children, you put a generator child to bed at 6 or 7 o'clock, and you're actually hurting them. And I mean that. That is, you're ultimately going to create sleeping problems for them. That's going to lead to other problems that are going to arise. It is so unhealthy for a generator. Generator is a motor. It's this prime life motor, and it needs to exhaust itself. It's one of the most important things to grasp. It needs to exhaust itself. So that child, the image, the perfect image of a generator child at home is that they're in, let's say, a family room, and the adults are watching TV, and the generator child collapses while they're watching and falls asleep on the carpet. This is perfect, absolutely perfect. So again, one of the things that creates so much of the dilemma in being correct is, homogenized conventions and generalities, that it's unhealthy for your child not to have an early bedtime, that they need lots of sleep and blah, 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 and this and that, and whatever the case may be. And they shouldn't be staying up late and all of that stuff. Well, when it comes to generators, it's really nonsense. I mean, it's nonsense. Not only just nonsense, it is, as I said, it is something that's really unhealthy for them. The truly content, well-balanced generator, has that exhaustion moment every day. That moment when they've simply had enough, they're finished, and they go to sleep. And it's an indication that they've used their energy well, because this is what's so important. And using their energy well brings satisfaction into their life. You want to manifest your baby that's at peace. You want to generate a baby that's satisfied. You want to generate a child and a teenager that's satisfied. Just over 20% of children are projectors. And projectors suffer deeply from conditioning because they're designed to be conditioned because they're a non-energy type. And they have a very, very powerful focused aura. Most important thing for the parent of particularly an infant coming into the world that's a projector, is that projectors are healthiest in one-on-one relationships. So to really communicate with your baby and connect with your baby, it's very important that it's one-on-one. Not this scene where the baby sees two heads above its crib at the same time. It is actually quite disturbing to the projected baby where to look, because they're really designed to focus on one being at a time. Understanding that is something that's very important. Understanding that they're a non-energy type is also something important. But most of all, understanding that regardless of whether they're a day old or they're 8 or they're 15, they see things. They really see things. Projectors are here to recognize. They are. And they're here to be recognized. The projector child, is calling out to be recognized for what it is. So it doesn't have to go through all that conditioning. And it recognizes you. I mean, the projector child, as it matures, is ultimately the best guide for where the family is going to go and the family's direction, because it's inherent in nature. It's just something to grasp. And again, you have this waiting for the invitation. After all, everything about the projector child is that things have to be presented to them. They need a great deal of stimulation, and they need those things that are really going to get their attention. And they're not a generator child where you hold a mirror up to them and tell them what you see in them. They're not. You give them a magnifying glass and you point it at someone else. And you say, look what you can see in there. Because this is what a projector is all about. A projector is here to master the world around it. It's here to focus and penetrate the world around it, so that it can add to its recognition skills. In other words, the projector child is a child that needs the stimulation that connects it, to the what's going on in the household, in the family, all of these things, in order for it to develop its skills. The other thing is, projector children, if they're invited into understanding or knowing or making sense of something, as long as it has a basic system to it, they will master it. Projectors are capable of recognizing and adapting to systems by design. Now, you don't want a bitter child. You want the sweetness of that projected child. You do not want the bitterness. And the bitterness is the moment that you place pressure on that child. And the pressure comes from so many ways, not just type. It's why any professional, any really well-trained professional in design, particularly at the rave psychology and primary health system, can point out so many things that will allow you to free yourself of basic fears and concerns. This child with the undefined throat center. You have no idea when this child's going to speak its first words. You don't. They might speak early, depends on conditioning. They might not be ready until much later, and there's nothing wrong. And there's nothing wrong. And there are so many things like that are visible in the chart that says to the mother, look, don't worry about this. You don't have to worry about this. And this is how you can help your child deal with this. It's all of these things. Every single piece of education about the nature of your child allows you the freedom to let them become themselves, to avoid the conditioning. Now, the reflective child. The thing that's so fascinating for me about the reflective child is that the really deep responsibility of the parent is twofold. One, obviously, is to feed this child correctly, because this is the most important thing involved with them receiving proper nutrition. But at the same time, to encourage their patience. Patience. I mean, this is one of the most important things for a reflective. And to understand that patience is its own reward. You know, the kind of thing where you would do the same thing for an emotional child. You know, instead of saying to them, you know, what do you want for your birthday? And, you know, it's a couple of weeks before. You start that 4 months before, you know, what do you want for your birthday? Think about it, process it. Or, you know, you can do that on a cycle for your, you know, your child. You know, it's birthday, you know, go back a full cycle of the moon before that birthday. That's the day that you ask that child, you know, what would you like for your birthday? And don't make up your mind until it's just before your birthday. Go through the process. Watch what happens to you every day. Which things you think about, which things you think are great, which ones you think is cool, and so forth and so on, until you finally get to the point where you actually know. The same thing is true for emotional children. I'm emotional. My sons are emotional. And I started training them in that when they were very young. You know, I would always ask them at least a month before, you know, what this or that they would like for whatever the thing was. And always told them, you know, don't tell me right away. And of course, they would immediately say things right away. And I would just smile. And, you know, a couple of days later, they would come and say, you know, I've changed my mind. And it was a way of, you know, teaching them what that means for them, that they need to process things, that they need to move through their time frame. And, you know, if you don't understand this about your children, you got to reflect your child, you know, and you try to push that reflector child to, you know, do things quicker, to come to conclusions quicker, all that kind of stuff. It's not who they are. And it's only going to do damage. You know, this is the integrity of a life. It's what I'm so grateful for as a parent, aside from anything else. I mean, I remember what it's like. I had my eldest child when I was not so. And I remember what I was like as a father. And it's not something I'm proud of. It's not. I wasn't very good. I wasn't me. I was living a typical not self-imaginized life. And when I think about the difference of what it's meant for me, my sons have come into my life since my experience. What a difference it makes to know who they are. All I do now is take pleasure in their process. And truly, that's what all I'm doing. I mean, you know, this is the wonder of it. And you get, you know, you don't have to deal with all these other things that end up being problems in families between parents and children, and the misunderstandings and the regrets and this and that and the recriminations. And you ask most people, you know, about their childhood, and you'll hear them blame their parents for things. I mean, it's just, you know, it's one of these diseases of the homogenized world. No, this is something that is really very practical and very fundamental. It is something that, you know, can be used at a practical level to make an enormous difference. But there is a prerequisite, and the prerequisite is the adult population. You know, it isn't even that. It's more than that. There's so many people in the world who are into human design, but it's about couples. It's about couples being into it together, being correct together, having a relationship that is, you know, a proper relationship, one that is truly correct in the way in which it functions. I mean, that's the foundation for making a difference in a child's life. It really is. I mean, again, you know, I've been around this long enough to have seen these things, couples that are very aware of their own nature, working on their process of their relationship through this lens and being able to bring this to their children. I mean, this is where the future is of this knowledge. And it's why, you know, we continue doing what we do, which is try to break the surface with as many adults as possible in the hope that, you know, it will impact their children or their grandchildren and begin to make a difference in the way in which young people are nurtured in this life. The parents, the rest is there. You know, the blueprint is there, all the information that you need is there. It just simply goes back to whether the education is going to be there and the commitment to the knowledge is going to be there. Well, as I said, this is a subject that is very important to me. And, like all of these things, you have to wait. It takes time. What I know is that professionals that are out there in human design every day, they're changing somebody's life. And that in the end is going to change the life of children. It's the way it has worked. It's the way it will continue to. But it's about remembering whenever you have that kind of contact with somebody who's ready. This is for their children, and it will give them great pleasure to be able to fulfill their responsibilities as a parent in a way that is fulfilling and fruitful. It's such a beautiful thing. So it's something to let people know about. All right, and to all of you, thank you for those of you that are in class, and to all of you that are downloading. Again, these classes have been shifted to this time zone, so it will be again at the same time next week at 20 GMT. Look forward to seeing you all then. Bye for now.
Bueno, llegamos al final. Quisiera saber si tienen alguna pregunta, alguna duda, algo que quieran aclarar. Acá estoy.
Alex, yo sí que tengo.
¿Eh?
A ver,
Eva,
estoy aquí.
aquí.
¿Ves? Bueno, este tema me encanta. Estoy esperando estudiar un poquito más cosas para comprenderlo más profundamente, pero me encanta. Vengo de la nutrición. Estudié nutrición en España y bueno, sigo estudiando en mi casa y es algo que realmente me apasiona. Y la única cosa que no veo muy lógica, ¿no? De acuerdo con todo lo que he estudiado, es que no importa la calidad del alimento, no se habla de eso, de los nutrientes en sí, ¿no? Que veo mucho, me choca un poco. Más bien las condiciones y todo eso, he visto un poco de cada uno, ¿no? Pero que el alimento en sí, si es transgénico, si no es, si, ¿sabes? Grasas trans, azúcares, no se habla de eso y Ra no le da importancia a eso, pero hoy es que la mayoría de las cosas que hay en los mercados no son alimentos.
Hay cada vez más porquería para comer, ese es el gran
Exacto.
problema. La calidad
Y
de
esto
la
me deja
comida
muy...
ha ido en desmedro, pero yo te voy a decir una cosa. ¿Se puede servir o no? Por ejemplo, yo soy justo. ¿Vos sabés que sos en el sistema primario de salud? ¿Qué sos?
No recuerdo el nombre ahora. Líquido caliente.
Ah, sí, sed.
Sed,
Frío.
eso, sed caliente.
Ok. Por ejemplo, ya lo que confiaba absolutamente es en el cuerpo, y en que el cuerpo, cuando estaba realmente sintonizado, elegía bien los alimentos que comer, sin saber si es transgénico, si es esto, si es lo otro. Eso es lo que él dice. Yo llevo un proceso con la nutrición desde el 2014 y he ido avanzando muchísimo en el tema del gusto. O sea, cada vez es más detallado, ¿viste? Cada uno tiene que hacer su proceso, pero lamentablemente eso que vos me decís, no tengo con qué rebatirlo más que la persona sepa a dónde compra sus alimentos, qué es lo que come, qué es lo que consume. ¿Viste? Yo creo que ese también es el gran trabajo de las nutricionistas, que la persona tome conciencia de que hay cada vez más basura. Es terrible, ¿viste? Entonces, bueno, en mi caso yo tiene que ser muy sencilla la comida. Y bueno, con este problema te tuve que digo, que vengo comiendo muy poco, pero bueno, tengo que empezar a tomar de vuelta. Por suerte tengo la proteína, que es lo que me ha salvado, pero dieta líquida y, viste, hoy me pude tomar después de meses un jugo de naranja exprimido y no me ardió la boca. Y me encantó, claro, yo necesito eso y se unen varias cosas, la satisfacción de ser generadora. Viste, bueno, yo compro mis verduras en un supermercado, en el ametrero dicen, no sé si vos estás en España ahora, ¿estás en España o dónde estás?
Estoy en Brasil y en una
Ah,
zona que es muy difícil encontrar comida de calidad, ya que hay
ujú.
muchísimos agrotóxicos, poco control. Las personas no entienden que por qué tanta harina y los macarrones y todo eso, pues no es bueno. Y
A mí me da tanta pena porque cuando yo era chica la harina era bárbara. Yo comía pasta, ¿viste? No había ese problema. Mi tía cocinaba. En mi casa siempre se le dio mucha importancia a la comida. Mi papá era médico, mi mamá cocinaba muy bien, mi tía, la hermana de papá también. Papá traía las verduras de una quinta lejos a una hora donde tenía primos italianos que lo cultivaban ellos mismos. Entonces, la verdad que comíamos muy sano, ¿viste? Pero fue una casualidad, ¿viste? O sea, se dio así también. Mi papá lo hacía, pero digamos, si no hubiera tenido los primos que hubiéramos comido, igual en esa época era más fácil, la comida era más auténtica, no estaba tan tergiversado todo, ¿viste? El tema de esto más que nada, Evelyn o Eva, sos vos, Evelyn, Eva,
sí,
Evelyn,
Eveline, bueno, me
Evelyn.
llaman Eva por simplificar.
Claro, sí, pues es largo, igual que a mí Alessandra me llaman Ale. El tema es empezar a tomar conciencia, por eso se dice que esta clase era la pregunta del ovillo. Empezar a tomar conciencia, ¿qué como? ¿Qué estoy comiendo? Eh, ¿Cuándo? ¿Por qué? ¿A qué hora? Me siento bien cuando como con un grupo, me siento bien cuando voy a un restaurante, me siento bien si tomo de día, si tomo de noche, cómo digiero, cómo duermo después de haber ingerido. Porque hay un solo tipo que puede irse a dormir con la panza llena, que son los nocturnos, más o menos. El resto tenemos que comer muy temprano para irnos a dormir con la digestión hecha. ¿Viste? Es para probar. Ya no te dicen ni te creas en esto. Con el sistema de salud es lo mismo que con el resto. Experimentalo, fíjate qué te pasa, fíjate si te ayuda a sentirse mejor. Yo conozco un montón de gente que le cambió la vida, ¿viste? Pero bueno,
Sí, es decir, llevo practicando, ¿no? Llevo observándome, no sé, más de 5 años. Y sí, sí, mi cuerpo lo voy acompañando. Es decir, yo tengo el cerebro activo, entonces los ayunos no me van nada bien. Y
claro,
antes de saberlo, pues yo practicaba el ayuno constantemente, porque me sentía
sí.
liviana, ¿no? Y no me daba cuenta. Ahora ya me doy cuenta que aún teniendo el cuerpo mal acostumbrado al ayuno, me olvido de comer,
Ujú.
pero ya siento que me falla, ¿sabes? Me falla la energía, como que me da sueño, me cuesta pensar, me empieza a doler la cabeza. Son pequeños detalles, ¿sabes? Me encanta lo caliente, lo líquido, pero a veces me tomo un helado porque hace muchísimo calor y siento que tengo mucho calor dentro. Entonces, vamos viendo. Pero claro, es de todo lo lógico que es el diseño humano, ¿no? En todos los sentidos. No he visto nada que no lo fuera. Esa es la única cosa que me deja allí, ¿sabes? Como la
Pero
calidad
viste,
del alimento. Porque hay
él
cosas que
lo
yo sé
dice
que son
varias
malas.
veces, sí. Pero él dice siempre, si yo estoy cumpliendo con la consigna que me toca del sistema primario de salud, de cómo tengo que comer para digerir correctamente, puedo comer animales muertos en la ruta, que va a ser igual. Claro,
Ay, ay,
voy a decir, ¿me entendés? Eso es lo que él dice. Hay que probarlo. Yo no voy a comer animales muertos en la ruta, pero conozco un montón de gente que hace años iban después de las corridas de toro y compraban el rabo del toro. Vos imaginate comerse el rabo de un animal que ha sido sacrificado, que le han... ¿Me entendés? Que comerse...
Alex, mira, así, en serio, ¿eh? A mí me encanta rabo de toro y no tengo ningún problema en ese sentido. Por ejemplo, me crié en España y, bueno,
A mí
nunca
me
pensé en
encanta
la
el rabo,
cocina,
pero no
nada de
quiero
eso.
que se
No
si
podía
vendan
pensar.
tortillas, solo comida de chica, me encanta.
No, nunca podría pensar en eso y realmente sí, es horrible, ¿no? Todos los estreses que el animal pasa cuando
Sí,
ingerimos lo llevamos
ah,
juntos. Pero
sí,
más que eso, lo que veo aquí ahora es que ponen, no sé, vas a un McDonald's, por ejemplo, y te comes una hamburguesa que pasa 20 años y no lo digieres, ¿sabes? Es un plástico. Entonces, y te juro que yo paso delante de un McDonald's a veces y tengo ganas. Digo, no, no es bueno. Entonces, voy una vez al año, pero yo voy porque mi cuerpo se mueve y quiere ir. Entonces, me estoy
mm.
dando cuenta de eso, de eso no es comida, no es alimento, yo sé, pero mi cuerpo quiere ir. Siente el olor y quiere, ¿sabes? Entonces, voy
Y después,
observando esas cosas.
¿cómo te sentís cuando comiste el McDonald's? Porque eso es
Bien.
caliente, teóricamente no tendría que afectarte.
Ningún problema, ningún problema. Tengo mucha acidez de estómago, pero porque paso horas sin comer, son otras cosas, ¿no? Pero cuando como alguna cosa así, como no es siempre, como suelo controlar la calidad del alimento, pero no siempre se puede, ¿sabes? Ahora voy a estar de viaje, voy a estar un mes fuera de mi casa.
Ese es el tema, no siempre
A
se
comer,
puede seguir al pie de la letra la dieta, se hace lo que
sí,
se puede.
sí, sí,
Sigue tu
pero es eso, la
estrategia
única
y tu
duda que tengo de...
autoridad, ¿no?
Sí, estrategia de
¿No?
autoridad siempre, ¿no? Si el cuerpo pide, ya está, pero
Mm, sí,
bueno, es
sí.
eso. Muchas gracias.
No, de
¿Puedo,
nada,
puedo
corazón,
decir
un
algo, Ale, al hilo de lo que está
placer.
comentando
Sí,
Evelyn?
sí,
Una de las cosas que yo he entendido muy bien de Ra es que si tú estás siguiendo, o sea, estás cumpliendo con tu dieta en lo que es el sistema primario de salud, el cuerpo lo va a digerir. Y si no lo estás cumpliendo, por más que comas oro, no lo va a digerir. Entonces no es tontería, o sea, no lo va a metabolizar el cuerpo, por mucho que tenga que sea lo más exquisito del mercado. Eso es lo que yo entiendo a lo que Ra se está
eso es lo
refiriendo.
que él dice. Eso es
Sí,
lo que él
él
dice.
dice que puede comer veneno en sus características, o sea, y no le va a hacer daño porque lo va a metabolizar siempre cuando es una forma un poco drástica de decirlo, pero realmente, o sea, puedes comer cualquier cosa siempre que sea dentro de tus características únicas en lo que al sistema digestivo se refiere en lo relativo a las variables, al sistema primario de salud.
Sí,
Eso quería comentar. Todo el rato estoy queriendo decírselo porque veo que sí. O sea, yo también me fijo mucho en lo que como. Desde luego no me comería un rabo de toro ni me parece bien nada del asunto de, de cómo se trata a los animales y todo esto, ¿no? Pero que, que sí, yo como de noche, se supone, pero también es que hay mucha homogeneización, mucho condicionamiento y llegado a cierta edad es muy difícil poder lidiar con todo esto. Pero bueno,
mm,
eso es otra historia. Lo que quería comentarle a Evelyn es eso, que por más que comas maravilla, si no lo haces en las pautas que se requieren a tu diseño, pues no lo vas a digerir.
claro. En un ambiente calmo, en un ambiente nervioso. Come si dice, caliente, frío, ¿viste? Pero es para probar, a ver qué les pasa. No es tan difícil probar. Yo no te digo que lo hagas todos los días ni que te vayas al extremo. Ayer estaba hablando con Patricia, una chica que me mandó unos audios, y le conté que hace 5 años una mujer en Alemania hizo el curso de variables con Andrea Reitz. Lo contaba ella, los cursos que yo hice con ella. Y terminó en el hospital, porque cuando se enteró que era frío, desconectó la calefacción en pleno invierno. Viste, yo me levanto porque es frío y se puso a térmica, casi se muere. O sea, hay gente que está loca de la cabeza, ¿viste? Siempre, yo en todas las talleres de variables digo, empiecen despacio, porque
Sí,
llevan años comiendo mal. Entonces, ¿qué pasa? Vas a estar peor antes de estar mejor. Cualquier dieta que ustedes hagan, Evelyn, eso lo puede decir. En general, muchas dietas te dicen, bueno, vas a comer fruta 2 días para limpiar, no sé qué. Esos 2 días te duele la cabeza.
sí,
Te estás limpiando el cuerpo. Y cuando se limpia la basura, y algún síntoma tenés, porque, bueno, te estás desprendiendo de todas las porquerías que acumulaste un montón de tiempo. Entonces, puede ser que las primeras semanas no se
sí, a mí
sientan,
me pasó eso.
qué
A mí me
bárbaro.
pasó eso. A mí me pasó de tratar de comer solamente de noche, ¿sabes? Yo que soy voraz a la hora de comer por condicionamiento, desde luego. Mi madre era de estas de que come, 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 come. Pues, o sea, a ver, yo tuve problemas gástricos, o sea, tuve que, eh, como te comenté, tomar un receso y dejar que el cuerpo se vaya aclimatando, porque ¿cuántos años estoy yo comiendo de esa manera? O sea, no se puede hacer una cosa así de un día para otro, ¿no? Hay que
No.
hacerlo con
Hay que
cuidado.
ir con cuidado, respetando. Y también hay que entrar en el sistema primario de salud. Si tu estrategia de autoridad está de acuerdo, Ra es enfático con eso. Él te lo dice, esto es una maravilla, pero a lo mejor tu cuerpo lo rechaza porque no está listo. Ahora, a lo mejor dentro de un año sí.
Exacto.
Entonces, esas cosas hay que tener cuidado,
Mm,
¿viste? Pero bueno, ahí vamos.
está bien.
En fin, ¿alguna otra pregunta que tengan? Yo no anoté nada más porque me pareció muy claro lo de Ra. Me gustó mucho el ejemplo que dio sobre el reflector de la paciencia y de preguntarle qué querés para tu cumpleaños. O puede ser cualquier cosa. ¿Dónde te gustaría que fuéramos de vacaciones estos 3 días si hay de puente? En Pascua, por ejemplo. Bueno, ahora ya está medio cerca, pero cosas así. Denle tiempo a ese chico adolescente que sepa que va a ir y venir y que eso está bien. Porque el mundo te dice que todo es gratificación instantánea. Ya, ahora, hacer.
Sí.
Yo siempre me acuerdo de lo que me dijo una vez una psiquiatra muy sabia, que en realidad parece que se lo decía un ministro a María Antonieta. Y yo lo puse en una oficina, en la puerta de mi oficina, porque tenía una jefa que me volvía loca. Y decía, lo imposible, no, lo posible ya está hecho. Lo imposible estoy tratando de hacerlo. Para los milagros hay que esperar 24 horas. No le gustó nada. Pero no pudo decir nada porque yo puse, se lo dijo el ministro a María Antonieta, no sé qué, haciéndome la sabia cultura y todo eso. Pero es un poco así, no se puede todo ya. Night miente. pero y cada uno tiene que encontrar su ritmo. Vos, Rosa, vas a ser mucho más rápida que yo. Estelí
Sí.
también.
Quiero o no.
Pero bueno, es lo que hay. No es, ay, vos sos number one porque sos más rápido. No, vos sos number one si realmente respetás tu ritmo único. De eso se trata, de encontrar el centro, encontrar el ritmo y poder descubrirnos en esa afinidad, en esa sintonía maravillosa de latir con el universo, en paz, satisfechos, contentos, con éxito, sorprendidos, como dijo ayer su marido, no me gustó eso. Pero bueno, es un poco así. Entonces, para quienes quieran comenzar, porque a no ser que lleven tiempo ya, yo no les recomiendo, no se puede empezar por la variable, porque la variable es compleja, necesitan saber los centros, las estrategias, los tipos. Se empieza por el vivir tu diseño. Yo voy a empezar un nuevo vivir tu diseño, se llama Vivir tu diseño Plus, el 6 de marzo. Son varias clases. Ya lo estoy armando ahora. Y yo tengo, gracias a Dios, tengo mucho material. Entonces decidí agregar practicums para apoyar las clases de base del Vivir tu Diseño, que es un curso oficial, y yo soy guía, entonces estoy autorizada para dar ese curso. Pero el tema es que estoy encontrando cada vez más cosas. Entonces, sí, hoy estuve viendo y tengo los audios de tipo es 1 hora y media cada audio. Entonces ya son 4 clases más de 1 hora y media cada una. Después tenemos los de estrategia, los de definición, los de los centros, así que se van a agregar varias, mínimo 6 clases más a las 7 o 8 de base. Escríbanme si les interesa. Voy a, bueno, el email es de diseño, d.humano.universal@gmail.com. Ustedes me escriben, yo les mando la información, tanto del vivir tu diseño, o si quieren, ya están a punto de hacer el ABC, que pienso darlo en mayo. eh, y para variable, que hay varios talleres de variable, porque es muy profundo el tema de la variable. En fin, ¿alguien más quiere decir algo? ¿Preguntar algo? ¿Quejarse de algo?
Hola, Ale.
Dime.
Nada, primero de todo, muchísimas gracias por esta clase. Me ha
Ay,
encantado, como siempre, escuchar a Ra es un placer y escucharte a ti también. Y, a ver, una de las preguntas, bueno, supongo que esto es la primera clase de algún taller o algún curso.
esta, hay una serie de... Ya tenía... Había algo que se llamaba Canal 88. 88 por los 88 grados entre el diseño y la personalidad. Ya tenía, todo lo que él nombraba tenía un nombre que tenía que ver con el diseño. Y él ahí, yo no sé si la gente pagaba por mes o qué pasaba. Entonces tenía algo que eran las lecturas de los domingos o las clases de los domingos. No sé si esta es de esas clases, porque Sobran no lo dice. Pero es una de esas clases sueltas, hay un montón. Y Shobian dio puso libres varias, por eso te digo, creo que hay 3 más. Una de las que a fin de año, una de las que había puesto creo que es monólogo de la mente normal, que yo ya lo había puesto en un video subtitulado y está en YouTube. Entonces creo que quedan 3 más, pero no tienen video. Entonces me lleva un poco más de tiempo armarlas porque tengo que armar yo el video para subirlo a YouTube y después subtitularlo. Así que, pero bueno,
Bueno,
a lo
como
largo del
está
año
vivir tu
vendrán.
diseño, como está vivir tu diseño por medio y la cosmología, pues ya vendrá este. Pero a mí me interesa mucho porque sabes que, bueno, que me gustaría, ¿no? Tirar por esa rama de diseño humano que es la educación también a los hijos y me
Es
ha
muy
parecido, bueno, todo lo que ha dicho me ha encantado, Ra, como siempre, ya te digo, y es tan necesario
sí, sí, sí,
llevar esto a la mayor parte de
sí,
padres que podamos.
exacto.
La verdad que sí, porque es una herramienta increíble. Aquí está mi hermana, ella es la que tiene el niño manifestador emocional.
¿Quién es tu hermana?
Justo
¿Alba?
Alba, sí.
Hola, Alba.
Hola, hola, ¿qué tal?
Bien.
Y yo,
Siempre me
sí,
acuerdo de tu hijo, porque bueno, yo la tengo cerca a Esther y no es común tener un hijo manifestador y la pasan mal si no se les reconoce la energía. Mi sobrino que vive acá en Barcelona, su hijo mayor es manifestador, tiene problemas en el colegio. Es un amor el chico, es un amor. Pero
Sí,
claro,
es complicado, pero bueno, yo cuando mi hermana me presentó todo lo del diseño humano y me explicaba cómo era mi hijo, yo decía, ¿cómo puede ser? Es así, es así. Y entonces, bueno, me ha encantado también todo lo que ha dicho Ra, la verdad que muchas cosas, sobre todo el tema de la comida, porque mi hijo con la comida es muy especial. Es un niño
ujú,
muy especial, es un niño muy sensible, es un niño y a veces, bueno, es especial, la comida la tiene que comer todo separado, a veces no come la cantidad que tiene que comer y mi madre me dice, pero es que tiene que comer más. Digo, pues no, él que coma, ¿no quieres más? Pues no pasa nada,
ujú.
ya comerá cuando tenga hambre. Lo que pasa es que sí que
Sí.
come muy healthy, ¿sabes? Come todo muy sano, le gustan mucho las verduras, las frutas,
¡Qué suerte! Eso es una suerte que le guste
sí,
la verdura.
sí, todas. Y no le gustan los procesados, los azúcares. Bueno, también desde pequeño lo he educado así. Y bueno, porque con el tema de la comida también siempre me han gustado los guisos, todo eso no le gusta, le gusta todo la plancha, al vapor. O sea que
Mm,
es una suerte. Come poca cantidad, bueno, entre comillas, porque cada uno come lo que necesita. Pero sí que es verdad que
claro,
es un niño, es difícil, pero gracias al diseño humano, pues estoy pues intentando entenderlo, llevarlo lo mejor que puedo y nada, y para adelante. O sea que
ánimo,
estoy muy
bravo.
contenta. Gracias por todo.
Me alegro
bueno,
mucho.
yo de hecho cuando él tenía, yo ya llevo 3 años y medio en diseño humano. Cuando yo empecé a conocer un poquito más de diseño humano, que ya llevaba un año, año y medio, y entendía bien, y empecé a ver las mecánicas de mi sobrino,
Ujú,
ahí realmente fue cuando aluciné, porque yo soy generadora manifestante, mi hermana es generadora, mi madre es generadora manifestante, no estamos acostumbradas a este tipo de mecánicas y cuando empiezas a observarlo en un niño que apenas está condicionado, que tiene 3 años y medio,
Qué bien,
desde muy pequeño ya quería articular palabras, no se aguantaba en los brazos, no le pedía permiso a mi hermana, iba directamente, abría el armario, cogía lo que quería. Bueno, la tenía negra mi hermana hasta que yo le dije, no, es que no te va a pedir nunca permiso, es que él es así, son sus mecánicas. Y ahí fue cuando yo realmente ya aluciné ya con diseño humano, pero cuando ya observas las mecánicas y con un niño tan pequeño, es alucinante,
Sí,
alucinante. Mm.
sí.
Bueno, Esther, a
Es
los
muy
3 años y medio sí que tiene que pedir permiso, ¿eh?
Pero es
Has tomado
manifestador,
buena nota. Ahora
es,
tiene que
es
pedir, tienen que enseñarle
manifestador,
a pedir
tiene que
permiso,
pedir
claro, para evitar
permiso. Hay
Sí,
resistencia.
pero su mecánica no es como un generador, que un generador ya de pequeño te lo va a
Claro.
pedir o se va a esperar que te lo traiga. Él no. Él hasta te pedía si querías que te hiciera un café,
Ya. Yo tengo una nieta manifestadora también,
¿sabes?
¿sabes? Berrinchuda.
Sí,
Sí.
el tema es lo que dice para todos los tipos la estrategia es algo, no sé si fácil, pero está como integrado. Para el manifestador no. La estrategia del manifestador es muy difícil. Si vos lo dejaras libre, suponerle que estuvieran viviendo un grupo de manifestadores en la selva, nadie informaría a nadie, porque ellos van a su bola. Es
Total.
como algo impuesto para que se den cuenta del impacto que tienen y que no dejen a la gente desmayada alrededor. Pero no es algo como natural para ellos. Por eso a los 3 años y medio no le va a pedir permiso. La mamá lo tiene que educar para que él
Sí, ahí
entienda.
empezó.
Mira, cuando vos pedís permiso, mamá no se enoja. Por
Sí, claro.
ejemplo, o no te lastimás, o no te tirás encima los platos, lo que sea. ¿Me entendés? Es así. Entonces ya desde grande le va a resultar mucho más fácil informar, pero les cuesta mucho, porque
Piensa, pi-
continuamente en movimiento.
piensa que mi hijo, cuando empezó el colegio, yo tuve bueno, porque los profesores me llamaban, cada día iba a buscarlo y me decían, tienes que llevar a tu hijo a hacerle pruebas porque puede ser que tenga TDAH. Yo a mi hijo lo llevé a un especialista
Uy,
porque yo no quería llevarlo a un centro porque ahí te sacan el dinero. O sea, empiezan, no, ahora un test, 50 euros, ahora no sé qué. Bueno, me gasté el dinero, lo llevé a un especialista. La verdad que es muy bueno porque yo me dedico a la pediatría y conozco a gente importante. Entonces lo llevé y en 2 horas que estuvo con él, me lo definió así. Me dijo, tu hijo es un Ferrari con frenos de 600. Así me lo dice, tu hijo no tiene TDAH con 3 años, ¿eh? No tiene nada. Simplemente que le tienes que hacer reconocer que es un niño que tiene 3 años, que frene, que, bueno, y yo he tenido muchos problemas. El año pasado lo llevé a conducta también, terapia de conducta, pero también nosotros, los padres. Me explicó y me lo encasillaban con TDAH y mi hijo no tiene TDAH. ¿Me explicó? O sea que imagínate hoy en día lo fácil que es para los profesores de encasillar a los
Claro,
niños.
ese es el gran problema de las
Exacto,
etiquetas que se ponen ahora, ¿viste? Para todo.
exacto.
Enseguida hay que dar un diagnóstico de algo y a veces no hay un
No, 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 no,
diagnóstico
es que
porque
no
nadie
hay.
está enfermo.
Es un niño súper inteligente, tiene altas capacidades, que lo pudimos hacer el año pasado. O sea, imagínate, de altas capacidades a
Cuádruple
catalogárselo
derechas.
como un niño, o sea, imagínate cómo está el mundo.
te lo
Tienen que
pueden volver
aprender más de
encima.
diseño humano.
Es cuádruple derechas. Sí, como Alex.
Cierto, sí, eso me acuerdo también, sí. Después pasame la fecha, Rosa, perdón, Esther, porque me parece que no saqué la tarta del... me interesa mirarlo ahora que hablamos más de él. Vi las fotos con el perro.
Sí, ya conoces ya casi toda la familia ya.
Sí, sí, en fin.
Hola, yo soy una prima segunda de Esther y de Alba.
Alá,
Bueno,
familia.
Y ella me
somos
habla.
toda la familia.
Ah, no sé si ha hecho una lectura ya.
Sí, y ella me habla, es generadora manifestadora como mi prima, y ella me habla, me explica, claro, hay muchas puertas, es complejo, pero bueno, sí, sí, muy interesante, sí,
Es
muy
interesante.
interesante, sí, sí.
Bueno, gracias, Elba, por haber venido a la clase. Me encanta. La familia unida. Maravilloso.
Muchas gracias, me ha gustado mucho. Soy muy novata en esto, pero bueno, interesante, sí, muy interesante. Gracias.
Vale. Bueno, entonces, ¿le ponemos el moño a la clase?
Bueno,
Cerramos.
yo también quiero agradecer entonces con el moño. Quiero agradecer porque estuvo muy buena la clase. Muy,
Sí,
muy
Gracias,
buena.
Ale.
de
Sirve para
nada.
los niños que están en nuestro entorno y también para nuestro niño interior.
Ay,
Sí, exacto.
Ale,
Que
una
nos han
consultita,
ordenado. Sí, dime, Flor.
porque entré tarde, como siempre.
Sí,
Esto
sí,
no queda grabado.
sí, está grabado.
Ah, bueno, bárbaro. No, chocha, porque llegué tarde, pero bueno, tengo una proyectora entre tantos generadores que después la voy a volver a ver y me fascina, porque ahora no tengo mis cuadernos, pero estoy fascinada con cada uno, desarmando a cada uno, agradecida, como siempre.
Bueno, ahora en un rato la subo a YouTube, así que la pueden ir a ver si quieren.
Muchísimas gracias, porque es para ver 2 o 3 veces esta.
Para repasarla, sí.
Sí,
Sí,
sí, sí, sí. Y
así
para
es.
sacar los machetes de los que tuvimos la bendición de hacer otros talleres, sacar machetes e ir machando, ¿no? Porque habla de cosas que si no las sabes, bueno, las ves en el nivel superficial, pero cuando las conoces, habla de cosas que son profundas.
Yo esto te dicho del reflector, de preguntarle qué día para el cumpleaños,
Sí.
y el emocional también, yo no lo había escuchado nunca.
yo
Ujú.
tampoco.
Esta clase yo no la, viste, pasa, o a veces, bueno, uno lo ve y eso se te pierde, viste.
Y algunas
En fin,
cosas que dijo sobre el generador yo ya las había escuchado, pero dichas con la continuidad que las dijo y desde la mirada que las venía diciendo, es como que te caen las fichas del efecto dominó, en efecto dominó. Así que bueno, así que este taller de educación para padres, o sea, esta clase de educación para padres, estaba en ese programa 88, pero no tiene continuidad como taller.
no, no,
Ah,
no.
ok.
Fue una clase así como, eh, hay varias, muchas clases
Qué
de
picardía,
emocional.
Ra, ¿no? Que no hiciera más enfocado en este tipo de, eh, con este criterio de educación para padres.
Los dan Lila y Carmen. Dan el curso de educación para padres, para hijos, y ese lo tengo que hacer, pero la última vez que miré salía $900.
Ah, la Perpetua.
Claro,
Maya
entonces
Blanco también
yo
hace
estoy un
esto.
poco más repuesta, ¿viste? A mí
No, no,
también
no.
me engañan los precios de la escuela, ¿viste?
El
Eh,
sacral tiene que dar respuesta y el bolsillo tiene que acompañar, digo yo.
pero sí. Ujú.
Bueno, entonces un regalo, lo tomo como un regalo verdaderamente de parte tuya y como puente, gracias a Ra también, ¿no?
Así es. Bueno, criaturas, nos
Seguimos
seguimos.
participando con la alegría de ser y de estar.
Exactamente, Esteli, nadie lo podría decir mejor. Y nos vemos pronto.
Nos
¿Oyes?
vemos pronto, así
Gracias,
mismo.
Ale, gracias,
Muchas
gracias.
Gracias, Ale. Muchas gracias.
Bendiciones
Gracias.
para todos.
Gracias.
Igualmente.
Buenas